Welcome to the Conscious Context Speaker Group of Alcoholics Anonymous. My name is Daryl. I'm an alcoholic.
Hello, Daryl.
Right now, to complete our series with the 12th step of our anniversary, we have Ricky D from Philadelphia. Everybody, let's welcome Ricky.
What's up, guys? My name is Rick, and I'm an alcoholic.
Hey,
It's good to be here. And I have a sobriety date. My sobriety date is November 29th of 2005. And I have a home group. My home group is the Stepping Stones. We meet in Northeast Philadelphia. And it's a Saturday night speaker meeting. It's the same night as this. I like that format. I like the hour speaker format because I get to come in for 1 hour. And I get to lock in, hear the message of Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't have to hear anybody else share. I don't have to share. I know I'm going to listen to one person, and I know I'm going to hear the message of Alcoholics Anonymous week in and week out. And in my home group, a lot of young kids. Looking around this room, and some of you guys are way younger than I am, and it's those young kids that keep me going. It's the young kids that are the future of Alcoholics Anonymous. The young bucks are the lifeblood, but like all blood, it needs a heartbeat. And it's the young kids in my home group that are in service and carrying the message and hearing footsteps are the guys that are the heartbeat. There's a big difference. There's a big difference. And my job here tonight is to talk about step 12. And step 12 comes in 3 parts. The first part is having had a spiritual awakening. The second part is trying to practice these principles. And the third part is try to carry this message to other alcoholics. And it's pretty funny because in the chapter working with others, there's no description of what a spiritual awakening is. Because I think why that is how my sponsor explained to me is, he said, Rick, you're sitting down with guys. You've already had it. Because of selfishness and self-centeredness is the root of my troubles. If I'm giving up my time and I'm carrying this message to one guy, and I'm not talking about speaking at meetings. Speaking at meetings to me is not any kind of service at all. I don't believe in that. I could be wrong. People could argue that with me about that, but I think the basic service that we give in Alcoholics Anonymous is one drunk with another drunk at some recovery house, some rehab, some detox, some Dunkin' Donuts, some Perkins, some parking lot of a church, some church basement. That's the real service that we do here. Speaking in a meeting is maybe 0.5% of the service work. Because I have friends of mine who are who used to be very active in Alcoholics Anonymous. And step 12 is no longer relevant in their life. And you will see them at meetings. You'll see them at an anniversary meeting. You'll see them in a workshop like this. They'll come in, they'll say hello to everybody. They'll speak for their anniversary, or they'll pick up their 27-year coin. But there haven't been no meeting other than that in years, or maybe even months. And they haven't sat down with a new guy in years. And I don't ever want that to happen to me as far as step 12 has to be ingrained in me to keep me here. Because if step 12 is not relevant in my life, then AA will become irrelevant. And if AA becomes irrelevant in my life, then God becomes irrelevant. If God becomes irrelevant, it's only a matter of time before I pick up a drink again. That's just my experience. That's my own personal experience. And I had a sponsor. I've only had 2 sponsors. I still have my first sponsor if he didn't relapse. I've had the other sponsor for the last 12 years. And just for anybody that's wondering, I am not Mr. Marvelous. I don't know how that came to be about. I could prove that because I was just asked to speak probably an hour and a half ago. So whoever Mr. Marvelous wasn't so marvelous, he didn't show up. all right? So that's what happens when we get nicknames in Alcoholics Anonymous, like Marvelous and Wonderful and some other stuff, right? So, and I think that the best, the most important thing that anybody's done for me in the last 14 years of my life was carry the message of Alcoholics Anonymous to me. And what I mean by that is I met a man November 28th of 2005. His 12th step was my first step. I met a man who came in my recovery house because the Alcoholics Anonymous did not, the message of AA never met me in AA. That's just my experience. I'll say it again, the message of AA never met me in AA. I've been to AA for 6 years, and with the meetings I was going to, it was always just don't drink, don't think, and make a meeting. It was put the plug in the jug. It was sit down, shut up. And that was, keep it green, play the tapes through. That was the message. And I couldn't pull any of that stuff off. I couldn't put the plug in the jug, it fell out. I would make 90 and 90. I would make 180 and 90. And they're all good suggestions, just not good for the alcoholic. The real alcoholic can't pull any of that stuff off. Right? And I didn't know any of this stuff, and then they would say to me, ask God to keep you sober. And I did that. It would work. It worked until it didn't work. I don't believe God's job is to keep me sober. Why would God keep me sober, not Chris? Why would God keep me sober, not Jack? Why would God keep Daryl sober, not me? Faith without works is dead here. I can come to believe in God and I can still drink again. And the works is what keeps me here. Because God works through you guys. Sometimes I need God with skin on it. I need a guy with skin. You know? Because if you think about it, you ask God for help. I ask God for help. He puts me into a detox, and there's the 12 steps on the wall. I ask God for help. Or I'm walking Kensington Avenue, or I am, drinking somewhere, and someone 12 steps me. And in that moment, I do want help. And I go to some detox or some psych ward, and there's the 12 steps, but I can't connect the dots. Ask for help, 12 steps, AA. Here's the power right here. I never knew that because I could never connect the dots. And I met a man who carried a message to me, and I had, at one time in those 6 years, I had 13 months of continuous sobriety. I had 13 months without a drink or a drug or any mood or mind-altering substances. And about 13 months, going into my 14th month of sobriety, I hung myself sober. That's alcoholism to me. That's what alcoholism is to me. Some people come into Alcoholics Anonymous, put a drink down, and they're good to go. Because the alcohol is their problem. Alcohol is my solution. I put a drink down, and the further I get away from a drink, the worse I become. My emotions and my ideas, they put the screws to me. They nail me up against the wall. And eventually I had to drink again to get relief from that. And I didn't know what I suffered from. I would hear people say, just don't drink. You don't want it bad enough. And I did want it. I've been in treatment many, many, many times. I did want to stay sober. I just couldn't pull it off. Because there's a thing on page 60 that says, A, B's, and C's of how it works. It's the most read literature in our fellowship, and probably the least understood for me anyway. It says, A, that we were alcoholic. There's step one. I'm an alcoholic, drunk or sober. That's the part that I missed. That I'm an alcoholic when I'm sober. I just thought I put a drink down, there's no more alcoholism. And I was sorely mistaken. And I can't manage my own life, drunk or sober. I'm not in the management business no more. If my life is somewhat manageable, it's because I'm not managing in that area. It's that simple. My life's unmanageable because I try to manage it. My sponsor he talked drunk to a drunk. This was not rocket science. And A, that And B, step 2, that probably no human power could relieve our alcoholism. How did I come to terms with that? By trying and failing. You know, you come in, and what's the first thing that we do? We can't drink, what's the first thing that we do? Get laid, right? Relationship, right? Then I come in, I get a relationship, and then she dumps me like they always do, and I drink again, right? And then he also hit me with a couple other stuff, like they see that God couldn't with a few assault, also step 2. What do I got to lose? I just burnt my life down to the ground. I had 13 months of continuous sobriety, drank again. I'm living in a halfway house. And I got curfew at 42 years old. Right? Then he read me this part of the book, We Agnostics. He qualified me. He actually qualified me to be an Alcoholics Anonymous, which is a rare art today, because I am not in the committee to boost AA membership. I am not here to turn drug addicts into alcoholics, non-alcoholics into alcoholics. I'm not here to, it's not my job. In order to be an Alcoholics Anonymous, I had to have a drink. I had to have a problem with alcohol. If that makes any sense. I came into AA, I didn't know I was alcoholic. I had a sponsor, so I went into rehab as a heroin addict. I never relapsed on heroin or cocaine. I always relapsed on vodka. Vodka was my drug of no choice. People, you walk into a recovery house and we're talking about, what's your drug of choice? It's my drug of no choice, is vodka. I have no choice whether I want to drink again or not. And it says, so he said, let me see what fellowship do you belong in. He said, when you honestly want to, you find you quit drinking entirely. I know. And he said, when you're drinking, you have little control over the man you take? Yeah, I have no control over the man I take. He said, you're probably an alcoholic. But I didn't know that. So I qualified for all 3 fellowships. I'm a 3-time loser. Right? Or I like to call a 3-time winner today. I can help the alcoholic, I can help the cocaine addict, I can help the heroin addict. I've experienced all 3. And it says, if that's the case, you're probably an alcoholic. And if that's the case, you may be suffering from an illness with only a sexual experience will conquer. Well, it doesn't say that, Darryl. It says a spiritual experience. So I read that wrong. I suffer from an illness which only a sexual experience will conquer. How about a financial experience? How about a social experience? I tried all that stuff. The social experience, the financial experience. Because with every relapse I've had in the rooms of AA, every time I relapsed, one idea after another was stripped from me until there was no more ideas left. There was no more ideas left. I suffer from an illness which only a spiritual experience can conquer. I can explain that to my mom. You ask somebody what alcoholism is. You get 1,000 different answers. Alcoholism is an illness rooted in low spirituality. If the answer is a spiritual experience, that means the problem is no spirituality. It's that simple. If I'm anemic, which I am, I go get my blood work, I'm always getting these coughs and these sinus infections. I go to my doctor, takes my blood. Yeah, you're anemic. Oh shit, I start Googling with that. I get no service in the doctor's office. I'm like, what's going on, anemic? I'm like, oh, I'm panicking. I asked the nurse, I said, what does anemic mean? She says, it just means you have low iron in your bloodstream. We're going to give you a prescription for iron pills and you're going to be fine. So being anemic means low iron, the answer is more iron. Being an alcoholic means low spirituality, the answer is always more spirituality. And that's what these 12 steps are designed to do. They're spiritual actions. I don't know how spiritual I am. You'll listen to people and tell you how spiritual they are. Just ask them. That's not my experience. I don't know how spiritual I am. On any given day, any given moment, I don't know. I do know I have a set of actions I can take in order to have conscious contact with God. I didn't know any of this stuff when I came in. I just thought it was, that the mental obsession flew around Altus and it landed on me and I drank. Where it landed, I was at Stepping Stones, the obsession landed on me. My unlucky day, I'm drinking today. I never knew that this malady I suffer from in sobriety is what fuels my mental obsession to drink, which fuels my thinking to drinking. So I come in, I put a drink down, and I don't do very well. I get restless, irritable, discontent. I speak English, but I also speak another language. It's called victimese. Anybody else speak victimese? All right? Play the victim. Keep playing the victim over and over and over again. I met a man who cut away that stuff. I met a man who just told me the truth about me, and it's a very simple deal. And I didn't know what sponsorship was. One of the most important things he asked me was, do you think drinking's your problem? Do you think drugs are your problem? Or do you think sobriety's your problem? I said, drinking, dude. I just burnt my life down to the ground again. He said, come here, Rick. He said, let me ask you a question. You had 13 months of continuous sobriety, is that correct? I said, yeah, I didn't drink for 13 months. He said, if you didn't drink for 13 months, how can drinking be your problem? You ain't touched it in 13 months. And he said, do you think drinking's your problem or do you think sobriety's your problem now? I said, sobriety. That's the first time I've ever heard that. That's the first time I sat in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, never heard that. Because a lot of people in Alcoholics Anonymous, the problem is drinking. And you put a drink down and they're good to go. They come into AA, they love the fellowship, they play golf, they play sober softball, they date the women, they'll do all kinds of stuff in the fellowship. They ain't never got to work a step. And that's the guys I compare myself to. Well, I got to work. He ain't working the steps. He seems like he's having a lot of fun. My sponsor says, don't compare yourself to him, you're not like him. I compare myself to step one, I compare myself to the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I find myself in these pages. And we hear a ton of shit that goes contrary to what this book says. And it confuses a newcomer, confuses the shit out of me. Meeting makers make it. I'm making a shit ton of meetings and I ain't making it. I'm a meeting maker who never made it. I hated going to meetings. What's that, you know that place you get to when you come in and drinking sucks and not drinking sucks and coming to AA sucks more than both of those? You ever been in that spot? I've been in that spot. That's called the jumping off place, on page 151 and 152 what the book talks about. Come to the spot where I'm getting no relief in the bottle, I'm coming in rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous and I'm still not feeling right. And sobriety's awful, and drinking's awful, AA's awful, and my life is awful. And I go right back to a drink, and that's not even working no more. That's when hanging myself looks like a good idea. And I tried to do that with 13 months of continuous sobriety. So I'm in this recovery house. My sponsors, this young, and he was younger than me, which really pissed me off. And he hit me with these questions. And for the first time, I could look back. I have a friend of mine, Jimmy, says you live life forward, but it makes sense backwards. And I started to see what I suffer from. I always thought my journey here started with step one, but it didn't. My journey here started with step 12, ingrained in the heart of somebody else. And the kid came in that recovery house and he carried a message to me. I'll tell you what happened. At 5 months sober, there was one recovery house, and in a very short period of time, there was 11 recovery houses. I moved out of that one recovery house at 5 months sober, and I started to run. I was general manager of all these recovery houses. I lived in an apartment around the corner. It was a beautiful apartment. It was around the corner from my home. It was around the corner from the recovery house. It was around the corner from the home group. And for 11 years, my life was smooth. For 11 years, I did what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go. I did what I wanted to do, how I wanted to do it, if I wanted to do it. My apartment, I remember the first month in the recovery house, and the speaker before me spoke magnificently about it. I had walked. If I was the first one home, there were 6 guys living in this house. If I was home first, I'd turn all the lights on, turn the TV on, turn the stereo on, turn any appliance that was on, just to quiet this down. And I started to go through the steps. And by the time I moved out of the recovery house at 5 months sober, I was sponsoring guys. And my head was quiet. There was times in my apartment where my TV wouldn't go on for days. And that's not of me. That's not of me. My days consisted of this. I work for the state of Pennsylvania. I wake up, I'd be at work at 7 o'clock to 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I'd come home, take a quick shower. I would drive to one of the houses, drug test the house, drive to another house, drug test that house, go to a third house, take them to a meeting, then take them out for pizza, drop them back off the recovery house, go test a couple more houses, go to the stepping stones in the basement of the stepping stones, do some step work there, work back to my apartment, do step work, then I go to bed. I did that every day for 11 years. At 11 years sober, I did that for 11 years. At about 11 years sober, I was diagnosed with cancer. And all that kind of switched up a little bit. And I'm coming out of the cancer, and my dad has a stroke. So I get plucked from this peaceful, everyday, I love life, life's wonderful, everything's great, AA's awesome, God's great. So he takes me out of that situation, drops me back home with my parents. I've lived with my parents since I'm 17 years old. Now I'm living with my parents. My mom's got dementia, my dad just had a stroke. I don't have kids, so I don't know what the hell I'm doing. And my life got real noisy, real quick. But the step 12 has always been ingrained, it was in the forefront of my life. And there's women in Alcoholics Anonymous, and there's some young kids in Alcoholics Anonymous that are helping me with my parents, who stepped up to help me so I can get out, help me when I'm at work, they can take care of my parents. And it's been totally different. When we say carry principles in all our affairs, I went from that being undisturbed life into this chaotic, taking my dad to the doctors constantly. I'm going to my own doctor's appointments. I had to go through the chemo, went through 5 surgeries, all while trying to do this. And it got real hectic. But step 12 was always there because how I get out of me is through you. These young kids that I sponsor, it's like they're coming off a run and they're not sleeping. So they're calling you 11:30, 12 o'clock at night, and they're getting you out of the house. Yo, what are you doing tonight? I'm like, I don't know, dude, I'm exhausted. He said, well, it's Friday night. I'm like, yeah, I know, I worked all week. I just came back from the meeting. I'm here with my parents. What do we? Well, when your parents go to sleep, call us. We'll come get you. I said, what are we going to do? We're going to go Dave and Buster's. We're going to play some pool. We're going to hang out. If it wasn't for those guys getting me out of the house, and then what I noticed too is this, that my parents are 95 years old, right? And the biggest thing that I see them suffering from is loneliness. I work around the corner from where I live. Thank God, I have a great boss and some great people that pulled some strings to get me switched to this armory around the corner from my parents' house. So I go home a couple times a day and I check on them. I go home at lunch, I make them lunch, and I eat with them. But they really can't focus on TV. They're really not into TV shows. They're 95. My mom doesn't even know her name or my name. And my dad's not interested unless it's sports. And there's usually no live sports on during the weekdays, unless it's golf, and that comes on Thursday. And they're lonely. And this is where AA comes in, where I knew if my mom and dad were in AA, they would never be lonely. They would not be lonely. I watched my aunts and uncles die. I have in my genes. I know I'm not going to live that long, but in my genes, in my family blood, we live long. I watched my uncle die, and then I watched my aunt die like a month later of loneliness. And I know that when I retire, and if I can't drive or whatever, I know my sponsees will get me out of the house. I know AA will show up. And step 12 has to be relevant. You know, and I have a lot of friends of mine who came in like I did, who came in busted up, broken, soiled, stained with nothing, no things. I came back to Alcoholics Anonymous with no things. My first AA meeting was in 1999. That's 6 years of bouncing in and out of AA. My first AA meeting, I had a house in the Mayfair section of Philly. I had a beautiful fiance. I had 2 cars. I had a job with the state of Pennsylvania. And from the outside, it looked like it was a really good life, and it was for a long time. Fast forward 6 years, I came back to Alcoholics Anonymous with nothing. The clothes on my back is what I owned. I had no friends, I had no family. Speaking of my parents, my dad, at night, right before my last relapse, right about a year sober, my dad backed me out of his kitchen with a butcher knife. I was sober, and said he never ever wants to see me again. I'm no longer part of this family. I was about almost a year sober when we did that. Because the records of my past was catching me, and some bills were coming in where I stole some money. I did some shady stuff, and the bills were coming in, and my dad's friends were telling him about what I was doing. And he said, I never want to see you again. And this is what AA's done for me. When they say there's a long period of Reconstruction ahead, they ain't kidding. You fast forward 9 or 10 years, now I'm changing my parents' diapers. Now I'm putting them to bed. And I don't know how to do none of that stuff. You guys, the people in AA showed me how to do that stuff. The kindness of strangers. I was at a meeting not too long ago, and I shared my experience, and I had a couple came up to me, a young kid and a young girl, and they're both nurses. And they're like, anything you need us to do. I've never met them before. We have mutual friends. I've never met them before. And they said, anything that you need, you got. Like, what, are you kidding me? That doesn't happen. When does that ever happen? You know, you ask my mom and dad, back before my mom had dementia, you ask my mom what AA's done for her family. You ask my mom what AA has done for me and my immediate family. If you had about 6 hours to kill, she will tell you all about it. My mom made 2 mistakes. My mom loved me and she had me. There wasn't a time too inconvenient or age too old to put the tap and tap them people like they were little ATM machines. And you guys became my family. They say there's a long period of Reconstruction. It took about 6 years for me to get. I'm still not invited to my cousin's houses. You know, Christmas time we had bad experiences. You know, my cousin's a Dallas Cowboy fan, and when I get a few Budweisers in me, it's not good. And I've attempted to put his Christmas tree through his bay window a few times, and he has not forgiven me as well as he probably shouldn't. I tried to make amends to him, and he don't want to hear it. So nothing I can really do other than practice these principles. When he comes around, he'll come around. So you guys became my family. I would go down to the last stop. Every Thanksgiving, every Christmas, every Easter, every July 4th, every Labor Day, every Memorial Day, I would spend with you guys. And then when my family came back around, I was blessed to have 2 families. But I had a sponsor who sat down with me. And in that 4th step, I learned what kind of human being I was. In that 4th step, I saw what I become. I wasn't born that way. It's what I became. I look at my little nieces and my grandnieces and nephews, and they're playing on the beach. Last summer we were on the beach, and they're playing on the beach, and they're 2 and 3 years old. They're not wondering if they're playing with the right toys. They're not wondering if their body looks good in their little bathing suits. They don't care who's watching them. They're just playing. And I was just like that at one time. And somehow, over the years, I just grew this thing called self-conscious. And I started to live my life running on self-will. And if you know, in here they say, if you want what we have, you got to do what we do to get it. I lived that life. I lived that way on the street. If you had something I wanted, I took it from you, or I did what you did to get it. It's pretty simple. Same thing in AA. If I want what my sponsor has, I'm going to do exactly what he does. And in that 4-step, I saw what kind of human being I become. I saw what kind of coworker I was. I saw what kind of employee I was. I saw what kind of uncle I'd been. I saw what kind of boyfriend I'd been, what kind of cousin, and what kind of sibling. And it didn't sit well. Like it didn't sit well with me. And it's not a moral issue. My mom, up until she lost her capacities, blamed herself for my alcoholism. My mom drinks now. She started drinking when she was 93. And she drinks a lot. There's maybe some women in here who can 12-step or someday, I don't know. But by the time she's ready for AA, she'll probably, God will hopefully take her home. I wasn't born that way. I never seen anybody drunk in my house. Beer, drugs, and alcohol were not in my house. And my mom and dad raised us the three of us, the same exact way. And she blamed herself for a long time for my alcoholism. Mom and dad aren't alcoholics, but they suffer from alcoholism. They suffer from mine. So making amends to them making amends to my mom and dad wasn't real hard. My sponsor actually read Working with Others, very rare. He actually read it, and he got to know my parents. Through AA small in Northeast Philadelphia, AA's big in Philly, but it's in our community, it's small. So my sponsor knew some people knew my parents. And he talked to them, and he set up my amends to them. Now they had a restraining order against me. So I knew I was off the hook. I'm like, I ain't got to make amends to my parents. They had a restraining order against me. It's beautiful. And when you're living in a recovery house in Philly, there's always two things that you are. You're always cold and you're always hungry. Because there's never no heat in the house. And if it's wintertime, you freeze your ass off and you're always hungry. And my sponsor called me up in late December of 2006 and he says, "Are you hungry?" I should have known that was a setup. He said, "Are you hungry?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Come on, I'm going to take you to get something to eat." So he picks up at the recovery house. We drive up Cotman Avenue. We pass by the Four Seasons Diner and the McDonald's and make it right on the boulevard. We pass the Olive Garden. We pass Applebee's and Red Lobster. And I'm looking going, I said, "We're not going to eat, are we?" He went, "Nope." And I said, "Where are we going?" And the further he drove the boulevard, I said, "Oh, no." He said, "Oh, yeah." I said, "I can't make amends." I said, "I'm going to get locked up if I go in their house." He said, you just go in, you just knock on that door and see what happens. And I trusted him. Knocked on the door, my mom answered, and they led me in the living room, and my dad took one look at me and he walked out. My mom sat there and says, "You have 4 minutes and 30 seconds to say what you got to say." And I said, "Mom, I was wrong." And she said, "Wow, there's a difference. There's something different. I never said I was wrong ever." And I told her I was wrong for her, how I stole her peace of mind, how I made her wait up at night. And no matter what age, my mom would wait up. Up until the age of 17, my mom would wait up till I got home. And then when my mom and dad moved in with my grandfather, I lived with my sister. My mom would call my sister and make sure I was home. I didn't know this at the time. Make sure I was home and alive. Because she seen it coming. I said, I stole your sleep, I stole your money. I'm the kind of guy that steal their car. I wouldn't be living with them, I would steal their car. And I would park it. I'd sideswipe something, because you're doing Quaaludes and drinking vodka. It's a little hard to steer. And I would sideswipe cars and then park the car on the street the opposite way so the damaged side would not be visible to the window. And then I would blame my mom, because my mom was getting older while she was driving. So I didn't do that, Mommy did that. And I started making my mom think that she was going nuts. And I would put my sister against my brother, and my brother against my mom, and my sister against my father. And I caused turmoil. I took my mom away from her grandkids. How do you make amends for that? And they're going to tell us that just not drinking is good enough. I don't believe that. You ask my mom if that's okay. And I said, Mom, was there anything else I did to hurt you I left out? And she said, yeah. She said, 1985, our relatives from Italy came over here from Italy, and we had Thanksgiving dinner in this house. You lived in this house, and you did not show up. I was hurt by that. I watched my mom get 20 years younger before my very eyes. My mom was very sick at the time. My mom has not had a cold. My mom has dementia, which is just old age. It's just old age, man. She has not had a cold or a cough or a sneeze since I made amends to her. And you're going to tell me that just not drinking is enough here? I watched my mom. My mom was sick because of me. I don't have children, but I see my friends who do in AA. And when their sons or daughters relapse and they're selling their asses on Kensington Avenue, I can see the pain behind their eyes. And we're going to tell us that just not drinking's enough here. And you ask him the standard AA question, how you doing? You're okay? Yeah, I'm okay. But right behind the eyes are the windows of the soul, and you can see the pain. And they have a program. My parents never had a program. I can only imagine what I put them through. I can never, ever repay them for the damage I caused them. And I said, Mom, is there anything else I could do to make this right? And my sponsor said, whatever she tells you, that's what you bring into your meditation each morning, that's what you're going to live up to for the rest of your life. He said, I don't know how to make God happy, but if you can make your mom happy, it probably makes God happy. I've been doing that. I've been saying that prayer every morning. What she said to me was, keep going to them classes, stick close to Danny. She knew my sponsor by his first name. I got a little resentful. I'm like, what are you talking about me? He's talking about me behind my back? He's like, no, dude. All I did was set the amends up, man. He said, I got you. And he was younger than me. I say it again, which really pissed me off. And she said, be part of this family. You show up when you say you're going to show up, and you can do what you say you're going to do. And I have not let her down in the last 13 and a half years at that amends. I didn't know she meant changing her diapers and stuff like that, but it's been an experience. When it's your birthday and your mom says it ain't, guess what? It ain't your birthday. Take the cake back, she said. It's not his birthday. All right, it's cool. It's okay. It's all good. The sponsorship in my life has been huge. I met men and women in that recovery house that were God-centered and God-conscious and God-reliant, who served a higher principle and a higher ethic than themselves. It's rare. I love Alcoholics Anonymous, but in my neighborhood, that's rare. What happens here is usually about step 9. The guys I work with, usually about step 9, life gets so good that we forget we're alcoholic. I have so many friends of mine who forgot they were alcoholic at 25 years sober. They're no longer around. I found a buddy of mine a couple of years ago frozen on his porch. Frozen like a popsicle. 25 years sober. I never thought he'd drink again. Not everybody leaves AA for bad reasons. We leave AA for good reasons. But I don't ever want to forget what I did to those parents. I don't ever forget what the men and women in AA did in my home group for me. I'm only here through the kindness of strangers. Only here through the kindness of strangers. I watch some of my friends come into AA like me the same time with nothing. And we get our jobs back. I got my job back through the amends process. I didn't even want it back. I knew that it was going to be detrimental to my sobriety if I went back there. My sponsor says, you go back there with an awakened spirit, you could be of help to some people there. And some of my friends got their job back, and about 5 or 6 years sober, they meet her, God's will number 1. They meet her, and then here comes the 2.5 kids, the dog and the cat named Evie and Rowan. They start building houses in Jersey. And next thing you know, there hadn't been no meeting in a year. Next thing you know, he's dead. And he left her with 2 children, a dog and a cat, and a 6-figure income no longer available. You know, I'm recently doing some work with a couple other men in AA. I've had the same sponsor and the same home group. I'm not one of them dudes who change sponsors at the drop of a dime in the home group. I've been in my same home group for the last 13 years. I've been the same sponsor for 12. I saw my first sponsor if he didn't drink again. And that's what I've always done. Change jobs, change relationships, change states, change cars, trying to make myself feel better. It doesn't work that way. And I understand that. I've experienced that even in the sobriety where I was starting to miss the mark and start looking for outside things to fill the hole inside that only God can fill. It's amazing when we start doing step 12 that God starts to reside in that God-shaped hole in my heart. Right in here, somewhere around here, God starts to live there and there's no more hole in there. Now all these promises didn't come true for me in the third step promises did not come true in the third step. My third step promises came true in the ninth step. One of the ways I live successfully today is when I'm wrong, I promptly admit it. That's one of the ways I live successfully is by doing our 10th step. When I'm wrong, I promptly admit it. The fifth step promises, loneliness will vanish. Sign me up for that. Sign me up for that. It happened in step 12. I started to sponsor a lot of guys running these recovery houses, right? I could not wait to get home to be alone. I don't know how that works. To see a fellowship grow up about us. In my home group, usually by April, I'm out of sick days. I work for the state. I got a lot of sick days. I've been with the state for 23 years. I get a lot of sick days, a lot of vacation time. Usually by April 15th, tax day, I'm out of sick time. I've been to that many funerals since January 1st. How do you tell? How do you tell a 4-year-old? When you're at a wake and a 4-year-old comes up to you and goes, Rick, why is my mom sleeping in there? The right answer would be this. Well, Caitlin, your mom would not leave the boys alone. Your mom was too selfish to help another young girl in AA. She never made any amends. She never wrote a 4-step, nor did she have a home group or was she in service to AA. That would be the right answer, tell a 4-year-old. You can't tell a 4-year-old that, so you got to pick her up and tell her, I don't know why, and we'll get ice cream in a little bit. Step 12 in our book says, practical experience shows nothing will so much ensure immunity from drinking as intensive work with other alcoholics. Intensive work with other alcoholics. I can help my parents, which I do. I help my parents a lot. And I say this, and some people get mad at me when I say this, but this is my experience, not theirs. That I help my parents, I feel useful, I do. But there's a different kind of feeling I get when I sit down with a 19-year-old kid and do a fist step with him than there is taking my dad to the ShopRite. There's a different kind of connection here. I'm not saying it's wrong or right, good or bad. It's just a deeper connection I get with another human being than I do from helping my church paint their walls, than I do from serving the military meals. I am divinely and uniquely qualified to help somebody just like me to recover from this god-awful disease that we suffer from. And we can call it whatever we want, a disease, a choice, a malady, it don't matter. I got it. Changing the name of the condition will not change my condition. We can argue all about it on Facebook if we want. I got it. I got this thing inside me that wants me dead, and the last speaker talked about it beautifully, this malady of spirit. This blockage I have when I'm sober, and that voice in my head, because it's the same voice that says, go to detox, this isn't working. It's the same voice when I'm in detox goes, leave, this sucks. The same voice that says, this relationship is not working, let's end it. A month later, there's the same voice that says, just text her, see how she's doing. Because my alcoholism will use anything to get me back into a bottle or a bag. I was, in that 4-step I learned, coming out of my first 4-step, I thought my picker was broke. Coming out of my last 4-step, my picker's not broke, I'm broke. Big difference. It's a big difference. Came here with nothing. Came back to AA with nothing. I had the clothes I was wearing when I came back to AA, I got locked up in a tuxedo. That's how I came out in the tuxedo. Both elbows were missing. The buttons were ripped off. The blood stains down the front. The black crack hands that went across this way, and it smelled like vodka. It smelled like stale booze. Both knees were missing. I had no socks and 2 different kind of black shoes. That's how I walked into my home group. Because in my home group, the worse you look, the better we like you. And they loved me. I looked bad and smelled bad for months. And some of those same people come in here like that. And if I don't keep that 12-step in the forefront of my life, how dare I not give back what the men in my home group and the women in my home group gave to me that was so free. I suck the life out of people. Drinking, and I'll suck the life out of you when I'm going through something. The worst thing the worst alcoholic to talk to at any time is when it comes out of a relationship. Oh my God. And there's an epidemic in my home group. It seems like everybody just hooks up, and then there's explosions. And every time I got dumped in AA, I don't do the dumping no more. I never was in a relationship, really, ever. I was, but I really wasn't. And in AA, in my first relationships, I would get dumped. Someone treated, and I don't know how to have a relationship. And my sponsor's like, dude, you're draining me. You're draining me. Stop it. And I would cry on the phone to him. I can't live without her. I'm never going to find anybody like her. And he would say, good. I hope you never do. And for a long time, I'm going to end with this, I carried this message. Like, what I did was, I was the big book suicide bomber. And if anybody, I don't know if anybody's ever experienced that, I'm the guy that would duct tape about 12 big books to my chest, slide into a meeting about 15 minutes late, raise my hand and just blow the whole meeting up, tell everybody you're doing it wrong, and I'll blow out, and I'll go to the next meeting. And I'll go to the next meeting. I'll make 5 meetings a night, tell everybody they're doing it wrong. And it was a clear sign that I had an experience. It was a clear sign that I had an experience with the big book of the 12 steps. It was a clear sign that I had no experience. And an old timer at my home group said, Rick, I'm glad you did the work before you needed it, because we need to do the work before we need it here. Because we don't know when we're going to need it. I'm glad you did the work before you needed it, Rick, but God darn, man, you need no experience. Put the big book down for a minute and go learn about the history of AA. And that's what I did. I had no experience with that. And the more I read about AA history, the deeper I fall in love with AA. And I'm not really sure what kind of sponsor I am. I'm sure I'm not the best sponsor. I'm not the worst sponsor. But what I do with the guys is language of the heart. I was real rigid for a long time with this big book, and it was trying to be really methodical. And I think a lot of us go through them stages where it gets real methodical and rigid, and we got to do it this way or doing it wrong. It's just language of the heart now. The last 4 guys I took through the 12 steps know this book better than me. So what good is it opening that book? I said, the first thing you haven't done, the first thing we're going to do is you're going to get a home group. What about the big book? I said, you want me to open up that big book? Well, you can tell me, you can show me how much you know about it. The one thing you haven't done in the 12 years you've been in AA, in and out, is get a home group. What are you talking about? I said, I remember last time you were in my home group, I'd have wheeled 17 chairs around you while you talked to some new girl. Oh. And you're going to get a service commitment in that home group. And if you need to go away, you need to go away. Because I understand I have a clear first step for myself. I better have a clear first step for my sponsees. I know that once we start drinking and drugging, we ain't stopping, whether we want to or not. I'll ask a guy, you need to go away? Oh, no, I don't need to go away. Because there's some steps before the steps. Our book is quite clear about that. We favor hospitalization for the person who's still jittery. You got to get separated first. 12 steps don't work when we're drinking and drugging. I take guys to the steps. The first 3 steps, I dictate how fast we go through. They dictate how fast they do 4 through 9. Usually about step 4, I don't see them no more. It usually we sit down twice, now you very rarely want to see him again. And the guys that write their 4-step, so our book is quite clear on the time frames for sponsorship. And this is just my experience. Ebby Thatcher got 12-step by Ron Hazard, 2 months sober. Bill Wilson, 12-step, Dr. Bob, Bill had 6 months sober. So the time frames for sponsorship are quite clear, between 2 months and 6 months. Now, if I walk into some meetings and say that, I might get sucker punched. I've experienced that. I've had people come to me. I know people don't like me not because I think it in my head, that's not delusional. I've had people at certain home groups say, we don't like you. And that's okay. I'm here to give my experience. I'm not here to win friends or influence people. I'm here to give my experience. When I worked, my experience was at 2 months sober, I started taking guys through the 12 steps. It wasn't a plan, it's just the way it worked out. I live in a low bottom area, and there's no shortage of new people to work with. Because the guys that take through the steps, I've taken a lot of guys through the 12 steps, and I say that humbly. I live in an area where alcoholism and drug addiction is rampant. And I sat down with a lot of guys, and once we get to step 11, if that guy is not sponsoring between 2 months and 6 months, he never will. I have friends of mine that took through these 12 steps, they're 13 years sober. They've never sat with nobody. I don't want anything that they have. Because when they share the meeting, it's like this: what it was like, 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 and what it was like, and what it was like, and what it was like. And my buddy shared at the meeting, he spoke for an hour, and he never got to what happened and what it's like now. He's never sponsored anybody. And I'm with this new kid, he sits between us, and he goes, damn, I never got to what I am like now. And the new kid goes, we all know what you're like. And it wasn't good. What he said after that, he said, well, you're still a jackass. That's where the miracle happens in that 12 steps. The more I sit with guys, the more I get worked on, the more I see me in you. I don't know how that works, it just works that way. If I understand step 12 correctly, it's the greatest vehicle I have to get out of this. To get out of this. It's the first 6 pages of this chapter or a clear-cut directions on how to sponsor somebody. I sat down in this recovery house. My sponsor goes, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go through the first 3 steps. Tonight, my leave here, going to be on the 4th step. I said, you can't go that fast. I've been around AA for 6 years. That's against AA rules, regulations, policies, and procedures. There's no way to go through the first 3 steps as fast. He said to me, you're sitting here with a wristband on from a local jail. Maybe you know nothing about Alcoholics Anonymous or alcoholism. That was news to me. That's exactly what we did. He hit me with step 1. Took a little break. Came back, we did steps 2 and 3. He left. And I knew I had a first step experience. I was 0 days sober when he 12-stepped me. I drank that morning. He left. I knew I was going to drink again. I know it. My experience proves it. As we look back through my drinking, I'm like, I'm going to drink again. And I could not wait to see another man, other than a bartender or a drug dealer. He said, I'll be back in the morning. He said, and if you're serious, you'll have some of this written down. And he didn't throw a 4-step packet at me and start telling me to check stuff off. He said, we're going to write. And he threw me a notebook and he said, start writing this. Tomorrow I'm going to finish it with you. Because there's a big difference if somebody goes like this. When they say, you walk into a meeting like this or wherever, they have tables there, someone hands you a cup of coffee, and they look like a real good, noble guy, they hand you a cup of coffee, and they say, kid, you never got to feel like this way again. I always feel like this. That young kid I met that night handed me a cup of coffee. And he said, you never got to feel this way again. And I'm going to show you how not to feel this way again. Holy crap. I've been around AA with guys with 52, 53 years of sobriety, never ever stuck their hand out to me and said, let's work these 12 steps. What they said to me was, just don't drink. And that's what they knew. And that's what they knew. I'm not saying they're right or wrong, good or bad. That's what they did. I'm an alcoholic. You'll hear, job or no job, wife or no wife. I just don't drink. Like they're a man. Like I'm less of a man because I drink and you don't. That goes against personal powerless. The correct saying is, wife or no wife, job or no job, I don't stop drinking unless my dependence is upon God. There's a big difference there. If I could just not drink, I will be home, just not drinking, getting ready to watch the 76ers game tonight. That's what I will be doing. But I need to, because everything I do in AA is based on my first step experience. If I think I have power, I will say no to this stuff. And I'm not Mr. Marvelous. I don't know where that, I'll say it again. If anybody came in late, I am not that dude who, I don't know what Ron was thinking or what he was doing, but that dude didn't show up. And you're stuck with me. Because I was in another conference, and I had the text messages to prove it, right here, that I am not Mr. Marvelous. That's right. I am not that dude, because I don't know how good of an AA member I am. I wish I was a better AA member. I'm not. I missed the mark a lot, and I missed the mark. I wish I didn't, but I do, because I'm human. And we don't ever outgrow our humanness here. I'm never going to get so spiritual that my head won't lie to me. And I can never get so sober that I can't drink again. And when I pray and I meditate, my feet are firmly on the ground. When I was diagnosed with cancer, I had more friends. I had friends of mine come to my house who I know didn't like me. And it's not delusion. They told me they didn't like me the month before that. We don't like you here. You cause too much shit. And they came to my house. And they offered their prayer life. And they offered me money. And they offered me to take me out of the house. AA showed up. I spent so much time for about 3 or 4 months in prayer that I should be levitating. I'm not. But people, ask some people in AA, they levitate. Because if I meditate longer than you, I'm better off than you. And I don't believe that. My meditation is however I'm moved to do that day. I'm not wrapped up in the rigidness or the methodics of meditation in page 86, 87, and 88. I do page 86 every night. I do page 86 every morning. And I try to live in 10, 11, and 12. And then I know this is language of the heart. Working with them recovery houses, every once in a while, somebody would get dropped off on my patio, on my porch. And I'm at my home group on a Saturday night, and I leave, and it starts to snow, and Nebraska's playing Oklahoma. It's Saturday night football. I ordered a Santucci's pizza. I've got my sweatpants on, got the hoodie on. I'm buckled down for like me and the cat watching the game. And I hear all this ruckus on my porch. And I run downstairs, and there's this dude. He's a big dude. He's big. Old. He's old, too. He's big, and his hands were like this big. He could hammer and nail him with his hand. And I remember he shook my hand and it almost crushed it. I'm looking at him going, what's up? And he's just staring at me. And in this car was a bunch of young girls, and they said, that's our father. And the one girl hollers out, that's my grandfather. He's drinking himself to death, and we heard you could help. And they took off. I got this dude this giant on my porch in his luggage. I'm like, oh. So I bring him inside. I just ordered a pizza. Now, this is where a lot of my sponsees will differ on this, because he's getting in the way of my spirituality right now. Right? Don't mess with my spiritual awakening. Right? Now, I'm a couple years sober, so the fizzle kind of wore off from my initial awakening, but this night gave me a new one. I said, come on, man, let's go upstairs. I start talking to him, I'm not getting through to him. If I had anything in my apartment, I would have gave him anything. Right? And he needed a drink. He needed a drink bad. And if it wasn't snowing like an inch every 15 minutes, I would have walked to the bar and got him a six-pack. He was shaking. And I went outside, called my sponsor. He's like, go back upstairs and you talk to him. I'm going to try to get him into a detox tonight. Just talk to him. Just hit him with the message. I'm like, he's drunk. I'm going to hit him with the message. He said, you just keep talking to him about steps 1 and 2. I keep talking about 1 and 2, powerlessness. Once we start, we can't stop. And step 2, that we have the spiritual awakening. And he's like, all in his eyes. I go back outside. I call my friend Marie. She says, go back upstairs. We're trying to get him into a detox. I go back upstairs this time, and he says, I got it. I'm like, What do you got? He said, I understand what you're saying. I said, what am I saying? He said, I'm like your cat. I'm like, all right, dude, where's my cat at? He said, I don't see my cat. My cat's always on the couch with me. I don't see my cat. He said, oh, your cat's fine. It's in your bedroom. But the door's closed. My bedroom doors never get closed. That cat has free reign in my apartment. And I said, why is the door closed? He said, well, her tail and the wind, I always crack my windows. It gets much in my apartment, no matter what the weather is. And the wind and her tail, the door closed behind her. I'm like, yeah. He's like, well, if you go listen to the doorknob, and I'm like, I don't know this dude. He's a giant. I got one eye on him. I got one eye. I'm like this. I'm like sidestepping into the doorknob. He said, listen to the doorknob. I'm listening. So I put my ear to the doorknob like a knucklehead. I can hear my cat's paws hitting the doorknob. I'm like, keep going. So I don't understand. He's like, listen, I'm like your cat. She got herself in there. She can't get herself out. She needs a power greater than herself, a power with hands to turn that knob. I went, holy shit, dude. That's the best description of steps 1 and 2 I've ever heard in my life, and you're drunk. And that's how I knew from that moment on, it wasn't about this. I used the big book, but it's not about the big book. The big book is the vehicle to get us the language of the heart. There was no big book open that night. And we took that guy down in one of the recovery houses that I was running. He lasted a couple days. He was detoxing really, really bad, and he left, but he didn't drink. What happened was, he died. He died with 4 days sober from an alcoholic detoxification. His brain seized up. And what he was a junkyard dog. He's been drinking since he's 8 years old, every day. And what he did was he lived in a junkyard that his dad used to own. The new owners agreed to keep him on, and all he did was watch the junkyard at night. He was a junkyard dog, basically, what he was. That's all he did. And when his daughter came back to get his stuff, she said that was the best he was ever in his life, the 3 days at this recovery house. We were separated from alcohol, but we tried to get him into a detox because we knew what could happen if you detox. If you just stop drinking abruptly, we know what happens. You die. He didn't believe that. And I'll tell you what, he touched my heart. For the 5 or 6 hours we were together, and for the next couple of days I seen him at meetings, he touched my heart. And that's how I know this is not about the big book. This is not about the dogmatic rigidity of just got to do it like this. Do it like this. It's not like that. And the fellowship has become dear to my heart. When I get diagnosed with cancer, you guys showed up. And that's what happens here. We show up for each other. And basically, what recovery in life has been for me for the last 3 years, between the battle and the cancer and my parents, and it's been basically every day between then and now has been someday, it's awesome, and it's awful, and it's awesome again. Then it's awful, then it's awesome. And in between the awesome and the awful, it's mundane, routine, and ordinary. And when it's awful, I stay close, I double up on my prayer life, and I stay close to God, and I stay close to my sponsor and my sponsees and my home group. And when it's mundane, routine, and ordinary, I just keep showing up and doing the same things I always do. Because that's what AA has been, that's what my life has been, that's what recovery has been. Heartbreaking, soul healing, horribly wonderful experience. Peace, guys. Thanks for letting me share.
Let's give Rick another hand, please. That was really powerful. Okay, now the anniversary starts at 7:30. It is 5:53, going to 6 o'clock right now. We will take a break at this moment, and our main speaker will speak at 8:30. Thank you.